Hello, everyone. Wow, Kevin just like snuck in here just at the last minute to be able to continue our conversation about acoustical material. And I mentioned in our last fast facts and features with me, the brand ambassador, that we would talk about Durason and those crazy numbers, like what's an SSIC and an STC and all those crazy acoustical. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I hope you have your big intelligent hat on there, Kevin, like you do every week.
Yeah, I have a friend who's an acoustical engineer that actually by trade.
Wow.
So I will say I am not that. I am a flooring guy, but by happenstance, we've had to learn some of these things. So I will do my best.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up, I went on to Durason. You mentioned Durason was one of the big players in the industry because they have various different types of acoustical materials. So I'm just going to downsize my screen just for a quick second. And oh, look at that. It's so hilarious. I see myself on the screen. Just going to bring up this one screen first and see that this is going to all work out without technical difficulties. We're going to go to this one first.
It's live. It's out. Something's happening.
Okay. So first of all, Kevin, this is the technical. Let me know that you have it on your side.
I see it. Yep.
Data sheet. So let's just go over, because I think we might spend some time today on concrete, and we make sense about concrete, because when I was on their website as well, and from the last time that I was dealing with this, there wasn't really the ratings for plywood substrate. So I found the technical data sheet for plywood as well. So let's just go into this first of all about what is impact sound insulation. What does that mean?
Yep. So that is the famous IIC number, impact insulation classification. And that is one of the two primary numbers that we're going to see your typical strata council in Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, is going to request. And it used to be the only one that they requested, which, as we'll find out in a second, made more sense. But we've now moved on to STC ratings, which is what we'll probably cover next. But IIC insulation impact insulation classification is exactly as it sounds. It's measuring the noise or the impact of, we're mimicking a footfall or a foot landing on a floor, on the finished floor covering above, and how much of that noise is being transmitted to, in this case, the microphone or the recording device below. And we're trying to measure what the difference is when we, let's say, add an acoustical layer like Durason. So it's not a delta difference, which is a difference between two measurements. It's just so it's not a relative difference. It's just an absolute number. What is the rating after this product has been put underneath the floor covering and with such and such a type of testing assembly. So as you can see, it gets quite complicated. So I'm trying on the fly to make it as lay practical and intelligible as possible. So I hope that made sense.
Okay. Yeah, so we have this chart. It says, okay, you guys install a lot of oak engineered hardwood flooring that's 14 millimeters thick. The Durason is 3.5 millimeters thick. It's great. We're all talking not inches and centimeters at the same time, but we're all talking about millimeters. So there's the FIIC rating 69.
Yeah.
What would be is that the delta rating? No, there's your delta.
The delta is the little triangle there. So you have a delta N, which I'm not sure if that means average, and then there's a delta max. So that would be the difference before and after, which is actually in reality what you're trying to understand is what's the difference. We test this, let's say, with a hardwood floor, and then we test it. We achieve a sound rating, and then we test it again with Durason underneath the hardwood floor, and what's the sound rating. So that would be the delta or the difference. Now, the reason why you see the F there That means field. So this test report that you're looking at was actually conducted in a real life scenario somewhere out in the wild, as we say, in a specific building or a specific complex. These are quite rare. This was obviously commissioned by somebody for a specific property. Typically, we don't work with FIIC numbers because they are different for every single building that exists
And what
in the city.
makes it different? What makes it different?
So you're moving the F, or the field is, let's take a typical high rise, 30-story high rise, and you conduct the test on the 30th floor, and your microphone or your measuring device is on the 29th floor below it, and you're seeing what the noise transmission is. That's a real life scenario, and that's very, very different from the lab or scenarios that they most often, where you're going to get just an IIC number. It will be performed to a certain lab or an ASTM certification, which people in construction may be familiar with that. It'll be done to a certain ASTM test in a lab, and that may not, and actually in most cases is not, anywhere close to representing reality or what how this product will actually perform in a real life scenario. And that is the great disconnect in our industry right now between these numbers and testing, is between real life application, which we're seeing here, and what can be achieved in a lab.
And I see here that this is represented, this little kind of box with all the little pebbles in it is representing 8-inch. Now we're back to 8 inches, or I could go 203 millimeter thick. How different are the different concrete buildings that are built? Are there some that are bigger than 8 inches? Like in between? How does that play into it as well, the thickness of the concrete?
Well, that's arguably the predominant factor in what type of number is going to be achieved, is not so much what thickness or what type of flooring underlay is being installed. And this becomes readily apparent when we look at some of, let's say, the vinyl plank underlays that are 1.5 millimeters thick of actual foam. Now, if we look at just this assembly, what we're looking at here with an 8-inch slab, is that 8-inch slab gonna do most of the sound abatement, or is it the 1.5 millimeters of vinyl floor underlay that we are supposedly testing? I would argue that it's obviously the thickness of the slab, the density of the slab, and even to a more extreme extent, as I mentioned in some of the lab testing, they'll have this assembly with an 8-inch slab, then they'll also mock up a drop ceiling or a suspended ceiling below that slab. They will then take that drop ceiling and they will stuff it with insulation, so with batting, and then they'll put the microphone underneath. And they'll say that this underlay or this floor covering achieved an IIC of this extremely high number, right?
Right.
So it's common sense to look at that type of testing assembly and say, well, is it the 8-inch in concrete and the 6-inch drop ceiling and the 6 inches of insulation that is achieving the noise abatement, or is it 1.5 millimeters of flooring underlay? And you know, common sense tells you what's actually going on in a scenario like that.
So I just see in the very tiny print down here, the measurement conditions, it's saying small bedroom, all these things to get the number. Small bedroom, it had furniture, which we know can absorb sound as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Walls, floor is bare concrete. The door was closed. The volume of, I guess the room was 1,208 cubic feet, and the ceiling surface was what is it?
136 square feet.
So what did I also read? Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
They also have a place I see there in the small print at the very bottom of where this test was conducted. So again, just further evidence that this is a proper engineered sound report of an actual real life scenario. And this is the ideal case, but the cost, obviously, for every building in the city to have a report done like this it's just not the reality.
It isn't. So do you have access to someone to be able to do testing for if a strata wanted a real life? Is there something like that available in Vancouver?
Oh yeah, there are sound engineers in the city. Absolutely. Like I mentioned, my friend actually is a part owner of an engineer company, a sound engineer. And I just recently met him through my kid's school, and we had an interesting conversation because I shared all the challenges that we have in the flooring industry, and he shared his same challenges that he has in the acoustic industry. And there's really a massive disconnect really behind on the strata council level, which is where all of these specifications are being driven from. It's just lay people on the strata, which of course through no fault of their own don't understand the technicalities and the science behind acoustical ratings. And both of us, but especially the flooring industry, is caught in a bit of a trap and a bit of a game that a lot of us don't want to be involved in.
Yeah, when you just travel around Burnaby and Surrey, there's so many high rises. We don't have much land here in Vancouver. We can't go this way. We're going up. And it's so important that numbers aren't just thrown around willy-nilly, that something very, pardon the pun, concretely is done in each individual building. Here's just an idea. Next week, let's carry this conversation on to the plywood subfloor on how it will change up the acoustical. And if your friend wanted to be interviewed by me, I would love to learn by him and have him maybe join us next Wednesday for this open discussion, because there's nothing worse, guys, that you build your own home, not a condo, and you've got your kids' bedrooms downstairs and the party's going on upstairs. You want to make your home as comfortable as possible for all different scenarios of entertaining and living as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's one thing we didn't get a chance to do is there's actually real life and practical ways to do that and to protect the sound within a home, but they actually don't perhaps perform, or they haven't been tested in these lab scenarios that I was mentioning. So in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, they actually have great acoustical value, which would be Durason, which we were talking about as one of them, and same with cork. But the producers of these products will, they'll do the testing in a genuine and transparent manner, and they won't take some of these shortcuts within the laboratory that other companies are willing to take. So sometimes my best recommendation actually doesn't meet, the current numbers or the IIC numbers that are being bandied about out there. So it's a very complex and frustrating situation that we find ourselves in right now, but it is a reality and we have to navigate through it.
So better to be transparent. So
yes,
let's carry on this conversation next Wednesday at 2:00 about acoustical. Great topic, great information today, Kevin. So thank you so much. We'll see you back next Tuesday at 2:00.